Welcome back to the Daughters of the Moon podcast. Grateful that you can join us for another week because you see, I'm doing a solo episode and we are excited though. We have Susie Kundrat with us today. Uh, G is a registered dietitian, nutritionist, and wellness expert who is a lifelong well-being enthusiastic, award-winning college professor, and an enthusiastic advocate for inclusive health and wellness, a sought-after speaker. She uses her simple health empowerment approach with consumers, clients, students, athletes, groups, and corporations to boost health and well-being. She's the author of Eat, Move, Groove, Unlock the Simple Steps to Lifelong Nutrition, Fitness, and Wellness. And we had a little bit of chance to chat before this, so I know you guys are going to be super excited when you get all this information. So welcome, Susie. We're excited to have you on with us.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. And it's a thrill to be, on with you today and to talk about some really simple, positive ways to enhance your personal well-being.
Wonderful. So, can you tell us what got you to write this book and how you kind of come to where you are in your journey?
Yes, I have been with universities for probably 30 years in one capacity or another, either in sports nutrition, working with collegiate athletes, or teaching in nutrition and dietetics and exercise and public health. Most recently, the last 12 years at the University of Wisconsin-Milwaukee. And as I was teaching a lot of these concepts that we'll talk about, I got to thinking that it would be really impactful to be able to put this into a book as long as it was accessible and simple and really usable for people of all backgrounds. And so I got to thinking about that and thought, I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to prioritize that. And so now I'm emeritus professor. I'm no longer full-time teaching and took the last year to research and write Eat, Move, Groove. And then we've been on a book tour. My wife and I have been on a book tour all across the US, although we want to come to Canada. So we'll come up your way. And
Perfect.
just really sharing the messages around simple, positive nutrition, fitness, and well being. And part of the reason I keep saying simple is because everywhere we go, uh, folks are telling us that that's the most important and impactful piece of what we're doing because trying to translate this research in these areas to practice can be very confusing. And certainly there's all kinds of crazy stuff out there, particularly in social media, that really doesn't have a lot of backing or scientific base to it. And so thought, well, we need to be out there talking about ways that you can improve your health, enhance your energy, improve your productivity at work, but not by making changes that are unhealthy, really focusing on positive ways to do it and including things rather than feeling deprived and taking things out of your life. So that's kind of how it came about. And I had this thought about really focusing on the most important things if we talk about the nutrition piece first that have the biggest impact for us. And that is number one, we've already discussed it a little bit before the show started, uh, finding ways to eat more produce. Because really, when you look at the research on fruit and vegetable intake, that's probably one of the biggest impacts we can have on our health is to bump up that produce intake. And the other thing I'm very passionate about, particularly working in sports and wellness most of my career, is how can we eat in such a way to make sure we're maintaining as much of our muscle mass and our bone as we can, especially as we age. And so, as we get a little older, we naturally lose some of this muscle. We lose some of the function along with it and balance and all those things that are so important. So my plan is really focused on eating a lot of foods to help prevent disease and manage disease. At the same time, eating foods that will help maintain and build our muscle and bone, because that's such an important thing for longevity. So that's where the beginnings of the plan, I call it the Super 22. The 22 is at least two handfuls or 2 cups of produce in US standards, but two handfuls, and then at least a 2 ounce equivalent of protein, about 15 grams on a food label. Like those are the priorities for the meals, starting with produce and high quality protein, then adding in the 11, which is a whole grain or starch, and a healthy fat source. So it's that simple. It's saying, let's start with a 22, add in an 11. That's your meal. You can start fresh every meal. And then we can talk about how that translates with the fitness part too. But um, I really thought it was important to have a concept that people could remember
Mhm.
and understand, first of all, and remember. And so when I'm speaking, we've had about 60 or 70 workshops around the country and with businesses and corporations and universities and YMCAs and senior centers all around the country. And no matter where we go, I bring my balls to show. It's just really like two baseball or pickleball sizes of produce and about a tennis ball of protein. And if we can start there, that is really as difficult as it has to be. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that.
I love that because I think that's what a lot of people struggle with, right? Is we're told all these different things and how much we're supposed to have. Because I know some things that I've been, looked at and I'm like, that is just way too complicated for my brain. And like, right, our brains are busy enough. So we want it. I love that you make it simple like that, that's something people can just remember. And if you're eyeballing it with like, it's a, a baseball or it's a, tennis ball, we have that in our mind and we can relate that. So I love that together.
Yeah.
And I know for women, and I'm men too, but women especially, it's so important to have that protein to keep our weight and our hormones and stuff balanced out. So I think that's great that you're including that. So can you talk a little bit about how maybe people can bring the produce and the different types of good protein into their bodies?
Yes, and we can have a link to a couple of these resources in the show notes too, because I think the first step is to do a bit of an assessment, a self-assessment, and say, well, what do I have in the kitchen, or what do I have wherever I have my food? Um, and then how can I make sure that I'm constantly keeping up options? And so I really am a big believer in, of course, having fresh fruits and vegetables, but also having 100% juices and canned fruits and vegetables and frozen and maybe dried. And those things really help if you look across the spectrum. So you never run out. That's my goal. You're never going to run out of produce. You look in the cabinet, you say, "Oh, at least I have some canned peaches, and maybe I have some frozen peas, or I have some frozen spinach." And so I think people sometimes have the misconception that they have to eat all fresh, and that's just not always feasible. It's not always okay expense wise. And I use the example of at our local grocery store. We live near an Aldi back in Illinois when we're there. And at our local store, when I buy fresh blueberries, and I'll buy them sometimes, but when I compare to frozen blueberries are usually 1/3 the cost of fresh. And
Mhm.
of course, fresh is great, but the problem with a lot of fresh produce is it might go bad. We may not eat it soon enough. It might get hidden in that back of that produce drawer, like it happens to all of us. And so I really am a big believer in having plenty of frozen, because frozen produce really it's just flash frozen. It's great to eat. Usually there's nothing added to it. And then having some canned items too and some juices. So that way we can get more of this produce in, because so many people will tell me I would eat it if I had it, or I buy it and it goes bad, or those kinds of things. So I think that's one thing to really think about. Step back and say, what do I like? What would I eat more of? How can I make that simple? How is it cost effective? And that's the first thing. And in fact, it's funny because we were just visiting with some family in Northern California on our trip. And I got a text from my niece after we left. And she said, Aunt Susie, I've got the 2211 this morning. And she said she sauteed a bunch of spinach and put it in her eggs and had a tortilla. And that was the main part of her meal. And I said, that's great. She said, I really wouldn't have thought how easy that is to do.
Hmm.
And so, even the recipes in the Eat, Move, Groove book, we have a number of recipes in there. And there's simple things like that, like on a Thursday or Friday night, sauteing up all your leftover veggies, putting it on a frozen pizza, adding a little cheese and baking it, which is probably, we were just talking about having been on this book tour in our camper across the country. And Audrey and I were talking about, well, what do we really miss eating? And it's kind of funny because we miss that because we like pizza, but that was a way we were always ensured that we would, use up all of our veggies, and it's actually really tasty. And so if and that's a way I think about more rather than less. Some people might say, well, you should never eat a frozen pizza. I don't really have that thought. I believe that we're going to eat frozen pizza, but let's make it really good. Let's just add stuff to it to make it better for us, and it tastes good, so we'll keep doing it.
Yes.
So, things like that, or recommendations of when you're snacking, you just start first with produce and protein with a snack. So maybe that's an apple you cut up and some almond butter or peanut butter, or maybe you have a handful of nuts and you have a couple cuties or whatever it might be. You're just thinking, first, I'm going to go for those. And there's a couple reasons why we want produce and protein besides just the fact that it's good for us. Um, when we eat more produce, we get more fiber. That's more filling, along with all the vitamins and minerals. And then when we eat more protein, that really helps keep us satiated or satisfied. And so protein is the macronutrient with the most satisfaction power. And so right away, you might be eating a snack where you do feel like you get full or it fills you up or satisfies you. So you don't maybe go for as many of the other things. And so, and I hear from middle-aged women and beyond who are a big group to be interested in the book that, of course, weight management is something on the minds of a lot of women in particular. And so finding ways to eat where you don't feel guilty, it's not a diet, it's not going to make you feel bad, but you are feeling satisfied and feeling good about what you're eating. I think that's really important.
I think that's really important too. And I find for me, like I've been doing some stuff, like I've been making my own sort of trail mix. Well, it's just mostly mixed nuts, but and some raisins or some, dried cranberries or something in it. And I said to my husband, I said, "Oh, you know what? It's a great idea. Look at I've got this big box that the cashews came in. I'm just going to buy the little bags and fill it up as I go, and then I can change out nuts and just always be changing it. And then it's easy to pour into a little container to take with you, right? And I take
Yes.
to work so that during the day, if I'm kind of feeling kind of munchy, I've got something like that. And my other thing is I love like for salads or if you're eating vegetable, I love the colors. So for me,
Hmm.
that's what excites me. And, but yeah, I'm guilty of anybody is, oh, that's going bad. And I love that idea about pizza because we do like to make homemade pizza. So we'll just buy the
Yes.
flatbread from the grocery store, pizza sauce. That's a great idea. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think your idea with the nuts is really good because it gets also to that emotional piece or psychological piece about, did I eat the whole thing? And so when you package those nuts and or trail mix into these small baggies or containers, and you have had that and you finished it, then there's something that happens in our brain where we know, oh, I'm done. I finished that serving. Great. Um, and so that kind of leads me to a point I like to talk about with people, which is the 2-minute miracle. And it's something I've used with my clients and athletes and patients for 35 years as a dietitian. And that is just really giving yourself the gift of about 2 minutes every evening. Maybe you do it while you're making dinner or you're relaxing, whatever you're doing, and you take 2 minutes and you just pre-plan for the next day. And I will link to some of these planning opportunities that I have on my website too. And what that does is just say, okay, do I have, what are 6 different fruits or veggies I could eat tomorrow, or 6 cups or 6 handfuls? Or what are some 3 different proteins I could have? And, just starting with that and even jotting it down or thinking about it or putting those things in the beginning of the refrigerator or front of the fridge might take a minute or two. But when you do that, then you reap all these benefits the next day. And I think it's the same thing with movement. If we take our US and Canadian guidelines for exercise, that's at least 150 minutes a week of what we call cardiovascular exercise, or where we're breathing heavily. I talk about it like you're breathing heavily, or you put your hand on your heart and you can feel it pumping, that kind of exercise or fitness, that kind of movement. And then 30 minutes of strength twice a week, which, that could be anything from stability while you're brushing your teeth to certainly lifting weights, doing body weight, doing yoga, whatever it might be. Um, but if you divide that down, then that's about 22 minutes of heart pumping activity and 11 minutes of strength stretching or stability a day. So we come back to that idea of 22-11, just like with the eat. And again, people tell me, well, I can do that. I get overwhelmed by these national guidelines and 150 minutes and all this stuff. But if you're telling me I could do 22 minutes of movement where I'm breathing heavily and do it throughout the day, which you can, then I can do that. And then also the strength and stability. One thing we've really been working on with the interns, I have a great group of interns who are working with me from all over the country, and they've helped develop some very, short 5 to 6 minute to 11-minute videos on YouTube just to move your body in ways that feel good to you. But you can get that strength or stability in over time during the day. Doesn't all have to be at once either. So I think if we can simplify these guidelines and these messages, both with eating and moving, and we help people understand, move your body in ways that feel good to you, ways you might want to continue to do, um, and do it in a way that's nurturing to yourself, then we can continue and be consistent with that too. And so when I came up with the 22-11 idea, I was really pleased that I felt like that's something memorable that people can think, oh, now that I can do, which is what I always tell my students. I say, you're doing a good job if you're working with clients or groups and somebody tells you, I can do that. That's when you've done a good job. That's when you're partnering with them. You're not speaking to them, but you're collaborating, because we want to feel empowered to make these daily opportunities come true for us for moving and eating. And the third part of the group groove, or the book, which is the groove, is all the other ways we take care of our personal well-being, including, excuse me, being in community, being in nature, taking time to relax and breathe and take care of ourselves. Because without that, the base of the groove, we really have a hard time doing the eating and the moving.
Mhm.
So that has to be a priority. And as we've been traveling around the States, what people are telling us is that, you know, having these connections and feeling like you're listened to, and, we all need that. And that's part of the groove too.
Yeah, we really need community. I watched that show, The Blue Zones, which I'm sure you're
Hmm.
probably familiar about. And it's a
Yes.
lot about that, right? It's a lot about the community and it's what we're eating and it's the movement and those kind of things, which I think is so nice. And I love being out in nature. Well, except for when it's -40, not so much.
Yeah.
But I love how you break it down though, that because it seems more obtainable that way. Because when you were talking about it, I was thinking, oh, you know what? Like it's like, can I carve out that 22 minutes to do exercise? And it's like, could I go for a 5 minute walk at what lunch? Even if
Yes.
it's just around the building and get my heart pumping. And yeah, I could totally do that. Or could on my 15-minute break, could I go for a quick 5, 10 minute walk, right? Because
Right.
I
Right.
work in an office, so I'm sitting a lot and
Yes.
it's not always easy to get up during the workday because you're sitting. So
Yes.
I love that concept because it makes sense in my head, and I think people will get excited about that because, another thing for stability that I had read or heard somewhere was when you're brushing your teeth, well, you kind of alluded to that, is like stand on one foot while you're brushing your teeth. And I'm like, okay. And it's funny because it seems so silly, but it works.
Yes, it works. I mean, all these books and resources that have come out in the last decade or so, in particular, about habit stacking. And you're already doing something, so do something else and add something to it that is positive for your well-being. And that's exactly what you're talking about with brushing your teeth and being on one leg or doing some stability. Um, 5 minutes of stability. And we, again, on our YouTube channel, we have some stability breaks like that, like 5 minute breaks where you could be by your desk. I mean, it goes by like this. And you do two of those a day, and there's your, 10 or 11 minutes. So it's really not that it's hard. I think it's that we have a lot of other noise in our brain. We have a lot of other things going on in our brain. So we do have to prioritize it and set it up, put it on your phone as an alarm, whatever we need to do to just remind ourselves. I like to do that in the kitchen too. I love to cook. So even in our little camper kitchen, when we're cooking in there, if something's in the microwave or in the oven or on the stove and you have a few minutes here and there to wait, that's a wonderful time to, do some deep bends, to do some stretching, to balance on one leg, to do some push ups on the counter. So there are things that would not require you to go to a gym, but really help maintain that muscle if you're doing it, consistently enough. And one amazing Canadian, there are so many, but one amazing Canadian friend of mine, Stuart Phillips, who is uh, a world renowned expert in strength and fitness in general, but particularly in strength and how to maintain strength as we age. I interviewed him for the book, and he said, the most important thing is finding something you can do and being consistent with it. Certainly, we know that if you're lifting weights and you can lift heavy enough weights that you're stressing yourself, that's fantastic. That's great. But it might be easier to, again, do push ups on the counter, do squats at the counter, do one leg strengthening and balance. And if you're consistent with it, that will make a difference. So, and I think when we've been traveling, it's been a little harder because we have our routines at home and we have to really think about what we're doing. It's not as easy for us on the road, but we do things. But um, for example, when we're home, sometimes we will just do 11 kind of sit down on the chair and get up, sit down on the chair and get up 11 times before we sit down and eat. And how easy is that? But you do that 3 times a day and your quads get stronger because you essentially have 3 sets of up and down and up and down. And that's just built right into your meals then. So that might not work for everyone, but it's helpful for us. It seems to work for us. So,
I love that. And I love that you make it like it's fun, right? So I think
yes,
when we make these things like eating and moving and stuff like that, we make it fun. It's easy to do and we get excited about doing it, right? And I think what I love what you're saying is that it does, even though our lives are super busy, we can put it in there in little increments and then it's like, wow, okay. Because I remember saying that to my mom because my mom works out, well, she's been a little lax, but for the most
Mhm.
part, she works out for like half an hour to an hour a day, right? She does strength
Yeah, wow.
training and she does, right? And I said, I'm so proud of her and I'm so pleased because I said, if you fall or something, you're not going to be like some of the 70-year-olds. You're probably going to bounce back. So, it's great that she's like that and does those things. And I mean, for me, I was like struggling because I'm like, okay, I just don't know where I can fit this walking in. So I actually did
Mhm.
start going in the morning before I went to work,
Yeah,
just around the block, like it's maybe just a little less than a kilometer. So but I get my body moving, I get some fresh air, I feel better. So it's easy when you're like, I'm just going to do this. And this is just
yeah,
part of my day, the same as if I'm going to brush my teeth or, put
yes.
my pants on.
Yeah, I mean, when you build it in like that, and you brought up a good point because when you take a walk in the morning, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 or 15 or 20, you are also setting the plan for the day. So I think emotionally, we feel better about ourselves. We feel more confident. We know we've already accomplished something. And so that's one thing people will ask, well, should you exercise in the morning or at night or during the day? And of course the answer is always, no matter who you talk to, generally it is when it works for you, when you can be consistent, right? But I do think there's extra benefit from doing some type of movement in the morning because then that kind of sets the tone for the rest of the day. And people need to remember too that even taking 2 minutes and marching in place for 2 minutes, you will get your heart rate up. You'll get a little warm. Most of us will, be like, oh, that was that. I can feel that. I can really feel that in my heart rate. And so that's where as little as 2 minutes, which some of the studies have come out recently saying, yes, as little as 2 minutes will benefit you. Doesn't have to be a lot, but it's kind of setting things in motion, which I think is great.
Yeah, myself as well. I think that's really a good thing. So, is there things then that we should be trying to avoid? I mean, I think that's a lot. I think we all know what we should be avoiding, but can you talk a little bit about that and how we can kind of push ourselves away from some of those things?
Yes, I mean, there are a couple schools of thought there. One of my things that I really believe in is this idea of food displacement, which simply means if you focus on what to eat, you're naturally going to eat less of the things that maybe aren't as good for you. And so if at meals you're getting 2 cups of produce, at least 2 ounces of protein, a whole grain like a slice of whole wheat bread and a healthy fat, let's say half an avocado, uh, that's going to be a good amount of food. And for many of us, that will be pretty satisfying. So maybe we have a dessert, but it's a piece of chocolate does it for us because we're not really hungry anymore, but we do want something sweet. And same thing goes for other meals. Even same things goes for staying hydrated. I recommend 22 ounces of fluid within the first couple hours that you wake up. Let's start getting hydrated early so we're not dehydrated, which sometimes gets confusing in our brain with being hungry. So again, if you're doing the positive things, you're probably not going to eat as many sweets or as many fried foods, or perhaps you're not going to drink as much alcohol. And, I would say the big things that we really know now that we don't want to have a lot of would be alcohol, extra sugar, sugar sweetened things, not as much, um, fried foods, maybe not as many processed foods, not as many salty foods, which are more the processed foods. And so going back to kind of this simple plan helps us naturally avoid some of those things that we don't want to have as much of. However, in my Eat Move Groove plan, I talk about love foods. And I call love foods foods that you just love to eat regardless of their nutritional quality. It's just something that makes you feel good, you enjoy, you feel satisfied. And I come from the middle of Iowa. So in Iowa, I grew up eating something delicious called the Iowa ham ball. I don't know if you've ever had one,
Never had one.
but it was a small farming community where I grew up, lovely place. And probably my favorite food is a ham ball, which is a mix of ground ham, ground beef, and ground pork. And then you bake these and you put a nice savory, kind of a savory sweet sauce on top and bake them. And not everybody likes them, but I love them because that was what I grew up with. And so I say if someone told me that I shouldn't eat handballs, I would think they were nuts because culturally that's important to me. And also, I just love it. It's my family favorite. And I think we all have those foods. And certainly, handballs are high in protein, but they've probably got a little more salt and a little more sugar on them than they need to, but they're still really good. Um, so I do think it's important that we take inventory of the foods we love, the foods we grew up with, the foods that make us feel good and feel nurtured and loved and cared for, and not to think you should get rid of those foods. I don't believe in that. But I say, yes, maybe you have your handballs or whatever your main thing is, but have some broccoli too, have some fruit, still balance it out. And so I believe that if we do kind of trying to eat this simple 2211 way, we would naturally maybe not eat as many things that aren't as good for us. And then I have lists in the book of you may have certain concerns, GI health, gastrointestinal health. Maybe you have concerns about high cholesterol or hypertension, like about a lot of people do. These might be foods to eat more often if you've got one of those concerns. And again, that tells you more what to eat rather than what not to eat. I think most of us know what's not very healthy, but maybe we don't eat as many of the things that are better for us.
Yeah, and I find like the healthier I eat, and so I don't eat a lot of like boxed and processed stuff because honestly, it upsets my stomach when I do. So
Hmm.
I don't tend to eat a lot of that. I don't tend to eat a lot of fast foods when, you're kind of on the go or something like that. I'm like, ooh,
Yeah,
it's kind of like if you have to, it's like what's fast food that's not going to hurt my belly because
right.
everything hurts my stomach. So when it's that way. Like not good food doesn't hurt my stomach. So
Yeah.
yeah, but I found the more that I got away from that stuff, the more less I craved it. And it's so funny because you talk to people even at work and they're like, "You don't eat that?" And I'm like, "I haven't had that in probably 20 years." Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
but you go hard if that's your
Hmm.
choice, because I'm not judging, right? Because I'm gonna eat what I'm gonna eat, and I'm not saying
Yeah.
I ever eat anything terrible, but it's just I find the more that you do get into that kind of thing, it just promotes more of eating well and having your handball, or for me it'd probably be scalloped potatoes, but you know
Hmm.
yeah, you can have, it's not that you can't have those things. And I love how you say that, like where you're focusing not on what you can't have. It's more about like, for me, it's like, how do I make these healthy things? Because my husband would rather not have vegetables. How do I make it into something that he's going to have some? Yeah. What
Right.
what is that? So I'm always trying, and I love to cook, so I'm always trying to
Hmm.
figure that out.
Yeah. And I think, you know, there there's some thought that putting a little bit of something that is just so flavorful in vegetables really helps us eat more of them. An example might be baby carrots and celery and fresh broccoli. Well, we may eat more of that if we dip it in a little bit of dip or ranch or something. That's fine. Or if you steam vegetables, but you do add a little squeeze of a lemon and a little bit of salt and pepper. Well, they taste a lot better that way. And so finding little ways to do that, I think is really important. And I tell people too, make a list of the ones you like. And even if that list of veggies is only four, eat those more often and just try to have them around more and find ways to do it. Um, and I think that's helpful too, because we're all different. We like different foods, but trying to, bump up that volume of fruits and vegetables, lowers our risk of disease, decreases our chances of getting sick and getting ill quite a bit, helps our gut, helps our intestinal tract. I mean, there's a lot of reasons to do that. It's almost so simple that we forget that that's probably the big priority.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not saying it's easy to do, but I do think it's a simple concept to keep in mind.
Well, and I like what your message is to people though, right? Is that A, it's simple. You can use what you have in the house as far as movement. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be costly for people that can't afford it. It's like shifting your mindset more so than anything else and keeping this, 2211 keeps it to me is super simple. So and then getting in with community and getting out into nature and finding those moments of quietness and just to stop your brain for, 5 minutes is so important, I
Yeah.
think. And I mean, I found this year, I don't know why this year, I kind of just came into 2025 being like, okay, I need to be around people and stuff a little bit more. So
Hmm.
some of my stepdaughters and my son's girlfriend, we started a book club together. So you're getting your reading, so you're getting some quiet time. Some books are good, some are not, but you're got that community now. You can talk about this thing, right? So I love your messages. I love that you have these tips and tricks on your website. So yes, we'll definitely get the links for those to put in our show notes. And I
Hmm.
love that you've got recipes in your book and things like that because sometimes I think when we're looking for this stuff, we just need a little bit of guidance for it.
Yeah. And I think, like anything, it's overwhelming. It's overwhelming all the information and what's out there. And, something I really love about what you're doing for your well-being is I can hear this and I can tell by what you're saying is that you are doing what we all benefit from, which is self-reflection. And you're self-reflecting and saying, wow, I do need to be around people more. How can I do that? What kind of solutions can I put into place that work for me? And it's, if it's hard to exercise for longer periods of time, can I do these 5-minute breaks? This works for you. It gets you up and moving when you're sitting. And so you're doing a lot of what I write about in the book because you're taking these opportunities to reflect, kind of step back, and then put small things into place that can be consistent for you. So I can see where what I'm talking about in the book is being played out by a lot of ways you're living your life. And that's really the goal for all of us, is to, again, think about, I talk a lot about thinking about your whys. Why do we want to take care of ourselves? What's on our mind? What are our concerns? Um, why do we want to prioritize our well-being when there's so many other things that can take our time and energy? And then thinking about the next step is thinking about the hows. So it's not just about why these things are important, but in my life, what are my hows? How am I going to, in a simple way, start doing one thing or two things? And you're doing that, which is fabulous. And all those things then build on each other,
Mhm.
because you start walking more, you feel better, then you start wanting to do more. You eat well, you feel better, you want to keep doing that. And so I think having these small movements that are fun and positive, and we know when we have support with anything, generally it's a lot better. It's a lot easier to do it.
Yes, absolutely.
So, yes.
And
I
I
think
think,
that's why we go
sorry,
ahead.
go ahead. I think that it's so important that we do and we listen to other people and their ideas because like I know a lady at work, she's like, when we watch the hockey game, every time that, the somebody scores, we get up and we have to do like a 2-minute dance. And I'm like, that is genius, right?
It's
Because
genius. Yes.
now that most people stream TV, if you're watching TV, there's not the commercial breaks really to get up and do anything, although now a lot of them are bringing the bags back in. So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think we don't think about those moments to be like, oh, here's where I could get up and, dance around or do some deep, knee bends or do some marching in the
Hmm.
spot, even if it's just a minute, right? Like,
Yes.
can be so beneficial that way.
Yeah. You tell her she's doing great because those 2 minute times add up. We want to score a lot of goals, a lot of
Right?
goals.
Yeah, that's well, and that's exactly it. And I mean, it's fun when you hear stuff like that, and then it encourages you to do it. And like some of the things you said, I'm gonna be like, yeah, I'm gonna put that into my life now because, and I journal every day, so that's kind of how I start my morning. So I do a lot of reflection in the morning about, these are things I want to change, and
Hmm.
like we had even discussed a little bit before we got on air, is like for me, it was looking at my health and being like, okay, what do, and I was actually just journaling about this morning, is
Hmm.
like, what is going to be my big, this is going to make me get healthy? Like, am I going to have diabetes? Am I going to have a heart attack? Am I going to, what is it going to be well, now you can't screw around, right? You have to do.
Right. Hmm.
So I think if we can, like you said, self-reflect on some of those things and be like, okay, now I have these new great ideas that you just gave me. Now I can go for some of these things and put that health into it because I think that's important. So I really appreciate you sharing that with everybody because I think it's just so important people get it.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, for a lot of people, it does take a big event or it takes a health scare or something like that. And that's good in that it's motivating. But I also think for women, a lot of what we don't hear is that we deserve it. And of course, a lot of women have been caring for other people as caregivers and taking that time to step back and say, I have to prioritize my health and I want to do this. I can still do things for everybody else, but I will have more energy. I will feel better. I'll work smarter. I'll do all these things because I'm taking care of myself first. And so making that a priority before there's a problem, of course, is how we want to do it. Um, and
Yes.
I do think getting stronger, feeling more vibrant, feeling like your body can do things is such a confidence boost for all of us, men and women both. And we see this in kids, we see this in youth athletes, they feel good, they are can do more with their body. It's very positive and boosts our confidence. And I think that is something we need to be mindful of too. I did this, I feel better, I feel better. And we know it can take some time. And sometimes you can get a lot more fit and you might even gain weight. So you can't worry about the scale. You really want to worry about or think about how your body feels and how your mind feels and these things. And particularly for women, we've been kind of beholden to the scale for a long time, and it's not really very relevant, to be honest, what someone weighs. It's more what their body does and the composition and again, how strong your muscles and bones are, because that's what's going to keep you keep you going.
It absolutely is. And I think, it was funny when I first met my husband, we used to do a lot of walking together. I don't know, we were back in the, honeymoon stage back then. And I remember him saying to me, why is everybody so friendly when we're walking, right? You're walking on the walk. Everybody's so friendly. I'm like, because everybody's endorphins are like super engaged. And so it makes you happy. And so I think, people could, especially people that are struggling with anxiety and depression and some of those
Mhm.
things, we tend to do the things that are not good for us. And I think if we can throw these little things that you're talking about into our day, it's going to boost their moods and myself included, right? It's
Right?
it gives you that boost that you need or that energy to get through the day instead of like, oh, I need one more coffee, you know.
Yeah.
Well, maybe I'll just go for a quick 5 minute walk because that'll probably
Yes.
be even better.
Right, right. I think it's so important, and we're seeing now with um, glucose monitors and things that even 5 minutes or 10 minutes of walking and how that affects our blood sugars and all these things that we couldn't really see before, we're able to monitor that too and say, wow, this is true. It's really doing something. I mean, we have this term exercise is medicine for a reason. It really is. I might call it movement is medicine because we know a lot of people don't like the exercise word, but movement is very positive, positive. We
Yes.
can do whatever our bodies are capable of and we can build on that and feel good about it.
Well, I think it's great your mission and to, be an advocate for nutrition and a healthy lifestyle because I think that's just so important moving forward for all of us, right? And, finding these simple I just love that it's so simple. Like everything you said was just like it clicked in my head was like I can do that. Oh, I can do
Yeah.
that. Oh, hey, I can find that time because that's my thing, right? Because I say that to my granddaughter all the time. It's like, okay, I get up, I go to work, I work all day, then I come home and for me, I do podcast stuff, and then I'm just like, where do you fit in that stuff? And now I know.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Again, hearing that I can do this, that's the dream that I love to hear. So I'm happy about that. That's great.
That's wonderful. So can you tell us where you can find the book and where you can find you and what you're up to? You're on a book tour, so you're right now across the states. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, our website is just eatmovegroove.com. And then we're on Instagram at Eat Move Groove and Facebook. And our YouTube channel is Eat Move Groove. So all that you can find everything there. And then the book is available at most online places. You can get it on Amazon, but you can get a lot of other online bookstores. So it's widely distributed now. And I will also make sure that I get you links to our recipes in the book because I've got a recipe, all the recipes set up in a PDF. So if your listeners would like to have that and take a look at those first, that's great. Um, because I do think maybe seeing how simple some of these things are would help people think about, oh, maybe that book is helpful or maybe other materials on the website. So we've got also on the website under book, there's a drop down menu there that's got resources for the book. Everything from how to boost your fiber to how to eat more beans, which is a food that I love that we didn't get a chance to talk about, but legumes and different ways to move. And then we're really trying to get a lot more information on our YouTube channel. So we have all the recipes or short videos for all the recipes on our YouTube channel. And we've got, again, a bunch of movement ideas, ways to relax. And we will be building that more and more because I think these short videos people are really appreciating. And of course, you can get on our email list through the website, again, at eatmovegroove.com. And we're also, for any students who are listening, we've just started an Eat Move Groove Student Wellness Network. And essentially, we're bringing in a guest, kind of as an interview every month. And so, students who are in nutrition or fitness or dietetics or social work or nursing or any pre health, as we go around the country and work with these students, we're developing this whole network so they can get on once a month, meet other students from around the world. Listen to someone with expertise. We're going to talk all about gratitude tomorrow and self acceptance with my colleague Mindy Meering from Durango, Colorado. And so that's something that I feel very passionate about too, is helping young people going into these fields understand that well-being is way bigger than maybe you're in an exercise major, but it's not just exercise or it's not just nutrition. It's really combining everything together. So we've started a lot of new things this year, and we will wrap up our tour the end of April, and then we plan to, keep it going in the fall too. So it's been a lot of fun.
Nice. That's so exciting. I'm so excited for you, and I can't wait to delve into that a little bit more because I just think it's I love the way that you present it. So I really appreciate that and you sharing this with everybody, and hopefully you'll come on again because I think there's always room to talk about new things, and like you said, we didn't touch on some of the things, so I think there's always that room to spread that news to people, and especially when it comes to being quick and easy and
Yes.
adaptable to your life, right?
Right,
So,
right. I'd love to. It's been such a joy being with you today, and I appreciate it so much. I appreciate the work you're doing. And I love how you are embracing so many different thoughts and ideas of how to care for yourself, because there's no one way that we all do it. We all need to find what works for us. And so many of the guests you've had and topics you've covered have been so helpful. So thank you.
oh, well, thank you very much. And if you had a final thought or advice, words for everybody, what would it be?
It would be good to yourself first. Remind yourself of the things you are doing to care for yourself first, and think about that. And then maybe think about a few more things you want to add or change or modify. But don't forget that you are doing so much already, that we all have to do so much already to get through the days, to step back and reflect on that, be positive, and move forward in a positive way.
Wonderful. That's a perfect message. So thank you so much again for joining me today and being a part of our mission to, help people live a good life. So thank you so much.
Yes, take good care.
Yes, you too. And everybody else, we will see you the next time.